Welcome to my video on the best Terastal for every fire type Pokemon. Now, this video will cover all of the dual typings as well as the pure typing of the fire type and the best Terastal there is involved with that. Now, if you check in the description down below, it will tell you the timestamps for all the specific typing and type pairings if you want to go check that out. What I would really appreciate if you could like this video, subscribe if you haven't done so already, and if you wanted to comment down below any of your opinions, that would really make my day, because honestly this project has taken me a very long time. I've put my heart and soul into this, and I just really would appreciate any support that anyone is willing to give. But without further ado, let's get started. Just some clarification about this video. First of all, this is not an exhaustive list of every single Terastal that would work well with that typing. It's just ones that, in my opinion, would work best for those specific typings. Also, this does not factor in abilities, so in the trailer we saw that Colossal turned to a water-type Terastal and had its steam engine activated. Now, in some cases there are going to be abilities that are going to allow for this to be able to take place effectively, and it's going to allow for abilities to be used with regards to the Terastal combination. And when I've talked about their typings here, I have not considered abilities. I will talk about that separately when I do the competitive guide videos in the future. Also, some Pokemon may be suitable to use specific Terastal based on powerful moves that they have. So for example, if a Pokemon has a ground type move such as Earthquake, which is more powerful than Terra Blast, then they could definitely turn to that Terastal to get that stab to be able to allow that to do more damage. So in some cases where Pokemon have got powerful moves or a wide move pool, they may be suitable to use more variety of Terastal, but again, I have not factored that in with this one, just on the specific typings as a generalization. Here we have the pure fire type. Now there are lots and lots of notable Pokemon that are just pure fire type. A few of them are just on the screen: Arcanine, Entei, Torkoal, Darmanitan, Flareon, Magmortar, Typhlosion. There are tons more of pure fire types that are really good in battle. Now, fire types have three main weaknesses. They have water, they have rock, and they have ground. Now, with regards to this, all three of those can be bested by a grass type. So a grass type Terastal is going to be your best Terastal in this instance. However, water type Terastals can also work very well against the grass and rock, because they, not the grass and rock, the ground and rock, because they're super effective, and also can resist the water type that could come in. Now, electric doesn't cover the ground very well. Obviously, is super effective against the electric, but the electric is an option to use against the water type that could come in. So I would say grass is definitely your best one here. Close second would be water, and then your third option would be electric. That's kind of the only other option that I could really think of that would have been particularly beneficial in this scenario. Now we have normal and fire type. The only normal fire type we have currently is Pyroar, and what we have here is the grass type as our first Terastal. Now, realistically, in a normal fire type Pokemon, water types and ground types are probably going to come in, even rock types, and grass is super effective against all three of those. So grass is a fantastic Terastal for any of those weaknesses involved with fire. I've also suggested Dragon here because a lot of the Pokemon that would come in, so for example the water types, it is a resistance. So you have got the Dragon being able to resist different aspects here. Now obviously super effective, it wouldn't work necessarily as well, but I thought Dragon type could work quite nicely as a Terastal here. And then also flying to again cover your fighting type weakness, because obviously you've got a huge normal type on your back, which means fighting types can hit you super effectively as well. So going for the flying type means that you can then be super effective against those fighting types that could possibly come in. So I'd say grass or flying type. Flying type also will be immune to the ground aspect with the Pokemon, so that could definitely work there as well. But grass or flying, I think, will be your best Terastal in this. Next up, we have the bug fire type. Now the big weakness of this is going to be your rock type. So I've put the grass and the water type here, which are super effective against both of those typings. Now grass typing also has the benefit of being super effective against ground typing, which could potentially come in, and also the water typing, which could come in to be super effective on the Pokemon there as well. Water typing obviously does cover the rock and the ground. The ground is less likely to come in, but it's something that could potentially come in, as it is combined with a lot of other typings there as well. And then you've got to think about things like your flying type weakness. So you've got the electric type here as well, which would stop any of those flying types from being a problem for you, be able to resist their attacks, and also be able to be super effective against them as well. Now, the notable Pokemon that I've got here are Volcarona and Centiskorch. Remember, big weakness to rocks, to rock-type Pokemon, so being able to change your Terastal to be able to get rid of that, I think Grass is definitely the biggest one. Next up, we have the Dark and Fire-type Pokemon. Now, there are two main Pokemon here that are representative in Houndoom and Incineroar. Incineroar being used in lots and lots of teams, especially in VGC. Now, I have got 3 specific Terastal typings that you can use in this case for these Pokemon. Now, when it comes to your Dark typing, you are not going to be hit super effectively by Bug or Fairy typing. You're only going to be hit super effectively by Fighting type. So I've put Psychic in here, not Psychic, I put Fairy in here, but you can use Psychic as well to cover that Fighting type weakness, possibly even Fairy type as well if you wanted to put that in. Now, for the Fire type, you have got a massive weakness to Ground and Rock, and also Water. Now, Grass covers all 3 of those weaknesses, and Water is resistant to the Water type and also super effective against the Ground and Rock types. So those would both work really, really well. It depends on how your team is built, on which one you want to focus on here, but all 3 of these Terastals are really good options. Here we have Dragon and Fire type. Now, the only Pokemon that is notable of not being a Mega is the Turtonator. Now, obviously you do have Mega Charizard X that does run this typing as well, but Megas look unlikely to come back in this generation. So with this typing, you have got 3 main weaknesses. You have got Ground type, you have got Rock type, and you have also got Dragon type. So in the terms of Ground and Rock type, I definitely recommend you run potentially a Grass or Water type Pokemon. They're super effective against both of those. And in terms of your Dragon typing, it might be worth running a Fairy typing if a Dragon type comes in, to try and hit you for super effective damage. Obviously, you build up that immunity then. So depending on how your team is already looking, I'd recommend going Grass, Water in terms of the Ground and Rock aspect, or in terms of the Dragon aspect, I would go for a Fairy type Terastal. Here we have the Electric and Fire type Pokemon. So the only one we have currently is Rotom Heat. We could see another one in the future. Obviously, Rotom Heat does have Levitate, so it does get rid of its ground weakness, but I do need to talk about other Pokemon, because potentially in the future we might have one that doesn't have Levitate. So, main weaknesses for Electric Fire type Pokemon, you've got 4 times weakness to ground, hence why you want to run Grass or Water, possibly even Flying to get the immunity, but Grass and Water are super effective, as well as Ice, against the ground type attacks. Then you have got the Water type that definitely can be run, so Grass type doubles up very nicely against that, and also Rock type, which you are weak to, which again, the Water and the Grass do double up quite nicely. So I would say Water and Grass are probably going to be your best ones there, with Ice being kind of okay, but not the absolute best. It definitely want a Grass or a Water type coverage in that case. Next up is a Pokemon that we currently have no representatives for, and that is Fairy and Fire type. So Fairy type, your weakness here would still be your Poison type. Your Steel type is no longer a weakness, but with Fire types you have got Ground, and you have got Rock, and you have got Water as weaknesses. So when it comes to getting rid of some of your weaknesses, you've got the the Rock and the Poison is covered by the Ground Terastal. With the Water, that will cover your Ground and your Rock weakness, but it could be problematic with things like Grass types. Grass type Terastal could be considered, but you also have the opportunity of Poisons to come in, so that could still be a very big problem for you. So I would definitely go for Water over Grass in this specific scenario. There also is the chance of Water types coming in, so having the Electric Terastal could definitely work there, but you do also have the opportunity for Ground types to come in, which could be a problem. Because obviously it's super effective against Electric. So I'd say the main ones that I would suggest are going to be your Ground type and your Water type here, but Electric or Grass types are alternatives if you have ways of getting around. Next up, we have got the Fire Fighting type, and this is known as a starter type because it is Blaziken, Emboar, and Infernape typing, all of which are starter Pokemon. So for this, I have got a few different suggested Terastal. You have got a weakness to Ground and Water. Those 2 weaknesses allow for you to run a Grass Terastal quite effectively because they are super effective against both the Ground and the Water typing. Now, you do need to be cautious because there is Flying type weakness that you already have, and if a Flying type Pokemon comes in, then that Terastal is not going to work very well. You could also run the Ice type. The Ice type allows you to cover your weakness to the Ground type Pokemon. It also allows you to cover your weakness to Flying type Pokemon as well. So it has got that double coverage there as well. And then same with Electric. It allows you to cover your weakness to Water types as well as Flying types. So any of these three would be really, really good. As I say, just be cautious about using the Grass type one because it does open you up to that Flying type weakness continuing afterwards as well. Next up, we have Fire and Flying. So a couple of notable Pokemon here. We have got Moltres, Talonflame, and Charizard, although I believe there are a couple more Fire Flying Pokemon out there. Now, the biggest weaknesses you have got here are your Rock type weakness, your Water type weakness, and your Electric type weakness. Obviously, the Rock type weakness is 4 times, so it's something that you definitely need to really, really consider. So with regards to the Rock type weakness and also the Electric type weakness, you can run a Ground Terastal. However, this is not very effective against the Water type, and the Water type will be super effective against the Ground type, so do be considerate of that. You have then got your Grass Terastal. Now, Grass will be super effective against the Rock types, and it'll be super effective against the Water types, and will also resist the Electric types. So that is going to be a really good option for you to use. In fact, I'd say it's the best option for you to use. However, you have also got Water. Now, bear in mind, Water will not resist the Electric. The Electric type attack, if that comes in, will cause you some problems, but it will hit the Rock type Pokemon for super effective damage and resist the Water type Pokemon. So I would say in this scenario, Grass is the best, followed by Ground, and then by the Water type Terastal. Here we have the Fire and Ghost typing. Now, there are a few Pokemon that are notable here. You have got Blacephalon, you have got Chandelure, and you have also got Alolan Marowak. They are all very good representatives of this type. Now, the weaknesses associated with this type, you have got the standard weaknesses of the Fire type, so the Water, the Rock, and the Ground. Now, a Grass Terastal covers all 3 of those really fantastically, so I would say that's probably the top Terastal here. However, if you are worried about the Ghost side of things, because you could have a Ghost type come in, then you could run a Dark Terastal. If you're worried about a Dark type coming in, you could definitely run a Fairy Terastal as well if you wanted to. Bear in mind that the Dark would also resist the Dark type attack on there as well. But I think definitely the top one here would be Grass. But if you're worried about the Ghost type aspect, then Fairy or Dark would be a really good secondary option. Next up, we have Fire and Grass, which there are currently no Pokemon that have this typing. I know this in the Pokemon community is probably the one typing that everyone is asking for currently. Now, in this, we have 3 main weaknesses. You have Flying, you have Poison, and you have Rock. So to cover each of those, we have got the Psychic type to cover the Poison weakness. You could also run a Ground type if you wanted to, but that is entirely up to you. We've then got Water type to cover your Rock weakness. The Rock weakness obviously being quite a big issue. And then you've got covering the Flying weakness, you have got the Electric type Terastal there. Now, as I said, you can run the Ground Terastal as well. That's definitely a really good 4th option, but all of those would definitely work, allowing you to prevent as much damage as possible on your Fire Grass type. Next up is the Fire and Ground types. The only notable Pokemon for this is Camerupt currently. The 2 weaknesses that we have associated with Fire and Ground are a 4 times weakness to Water and a 2 times weakness to Ground, so we can work our way around this. The best Terastal in this case would be Grass, because it's super effective against both Water and Ground, so having a Grass Terastal here is number 1. However, you could use the Water Terastal to have the resistance from the Water type and the super effective on the Ground type, or an Electric just for super effective on the Water type. However, it has got the risk of a Ground type coming in and being super effective against the Electric type. So I'd think Grass is the best, followed by Water, followed by Electric in this scenario. Next up, we have got Fire and Ice, and the only notable Pokemon here is Galarian Darmanitan Zen Mode, which is the only Pokemon that has this typing. I really wish that more Pokemon would have this typing, because it is a really fantastic idea to have. Now, with this, we have got a weakness to Water, a 4 times weakness to Rock, a weakness to Ground, and a weakness to Fighting. So 4 fairly common typings that are used in the metagame. Now, Grass covers 3 of those weaknesses. It covers Rock, Ground, and Water. So Grass typing is definitely a really, really fantastic Terastal to use in this case. You've also got Water, which covers the Rock, Ground, and resists the Water. And then you've got Psychic, Fairy, or Flying, which would allow for you to cover for the Fighting type weakness. Now, the Fighting type weakness Obviously, if you want to use a specific Terastal for that one, you can, but I definitely would say my opinion is grass is the best one in this scenario, followed by water, followed by psychic fairy or flying. Next up is fire poison. The only Pokemon that is relevant here really is Salazzle, but there could definitely be more coming in the future. So the main weaknesses you have got here are a 4x weakness to ground, a 2x weakness to rock, a 2x weakness to psychic, and a 2x weakness to water. So again, in this scenario, based on the other ones as well, I would recommend that you use a grass Pokemon because it covers the rock, it covers the ground, and it covers the water type. So grass typing here would be fantastic. Now, realistically, you could see another ground type come in, so this could be a water type Terastal as well. So water type would cover the ground and the rock and allow for you to resist the water type. Now, when it comes to the psychic type, obviously you do have the weakness to that. I have decided to put the bug type in here because that would mean that you would be able to hit a super effective attack on the psychic type as well, whilst resisting the ground type attack. Now, obviously it doesn't mean much for the rock type attack, but it could definitely work in your favour. You could also run a dark type if you wanted to, or a ghost type. But I thought in this case, in this scenario, bug type works slightly better. Here we have the fire psychic typings. There are two notable Pokemon that have this. They're Victini and Delphox. Now, realistically, you obviously have Victini as a very strong Pokemon here, and Delphox is not as strong in comparison. But they do have a couple of weaknesses. They have the normal weaknesses associated with fire, the water, rock, and the ground, which can be covered by a grass Terastal very, very, very well. And then you've got the psychic weaknesses of ghost and dark. So you could run a dark Terastal to get rid of the ghost types, to also resist the dark type damage that you could receive, or you could run a fairy Terastal to be able to hit those dark types for super effective damage and resist any dark types. However, obviously, you do have to look at both factors here. I think personally, the grass type covers more common movesets, but the fairy type could definitely cover different things, same as the dark type could cover different things if you needed it. So I'd say grass type's the best, but the fairy and dark will also work in scenarios you need. Next up, we have the fire and rock type. There are two Pokemon here, Colossal and Macago, that have this typing, and this typing does have quite a few severe weaknesses. It has a 4x weakness to ground and a 4x weakness to water, not to mention a 2x weakness to rock and a 2x weakness to fighting. So with this, I would definitely recommend, again, running a grass Terastal. The grass Terastal will work really, really well because it gets rid of your 4x water weakness and gives you a super effective attack against it, and gets rid of your 4x weakness of ground and also gives you a super effective attack against it as well. You could also run water, which allows you, it runs it for the rock as well. You could run water, which does the same thing, but essentially creates a weakness for the water, as opposed to a neutral, which, as opposed to having a super effective attack, which you would get with the grass. Now, with regards to the fighting type, you have got the flying type attack, which would allow you to be able to hit that for super effective damage. I think personally, grass and water are the best ones here, with flying definitely being kind of a secondary option. But I would personally go grass, then water, then flying. Next up, we have the Heatran with the fire and steel typing, the current only fire and steel typing. Now, fire and steel, they have a weakness to ground, they have a weakness to water, and they have a weakness to fighting. Obviously, the ground weakness is 4x. So, Terastals, I recommend. You've got your water and your grass. Now, they allow you, for both of them, to hit super effective on the ground type, and it allows you to be able to resist the water type in terms of the water, and it allows you to resist and also give a super effective attack on the water types with the grass type. Now, with regards to the fighting type, you can run a psychic, fairy, or flying type Terastal if you wish, which is down to whichever one you have personal preference or what fits into your team personally. But I would definitely say that grass and water kind of are more top tier because they cover more of your weaknesses, and then flying as a secondary option if that's what you need. Next up, we have water and fire type. Volcanion is the only fire and water type we have currently, but hopefully in the future we will see some more of this. So looking at weaknesses involved with the fire and water type, you have got your standard ground, you've got your standard rock. Now, with regards to the water, you have not got the grass weakness, but you have got an electric type weakness. So ground and rock, you want to be running a water or a grass type Terastal. Now water can give you obviously that pure water that takes away your fire typing, meaning it takes away your ground and your rock type weakness. However, using grass, it allows you to be able to hit super effective damage on the on the ground and the rock type Pokemon, and does change your typing entirely. Now, obviously with the water typing, you do have the opportunity for electric types to come in, and they can cause super effective damage against you, so potentially running a ground type, which would also hit for the rock type super effective damage, could be used as a Terastal. So I would say grass type is probably the best, followed by ground, followed by water in this scenario. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate every single view that any of these videos get, and you know I put so much time into this that if you made it this way, then all I can do is thank you with my heart, because you know you're what helps the channel. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. As I said, if you could interact, I'd really appreciate it. Comment down below if there are any ones that you disagree with, or any ones that you would add a different Terastal typing to, and give your reasoning for it as well. And I'd really love to see that. I think that would be a really cool way to interact with me, and I will definitely take a look at them, and I'll try and reply as much as I can. But yeah, thank you so much for watching.